Britain won World War II. Its flag still flew across half the world. London remained intact, and its colonies stretched across continents. On the surface, the empire looked unstoppable. Yet beneath the victory celebrations, Britain was financially broken. Not by bombs, not by bullets, but by a debt so massive, so carefully orchestrated, that it would destroy the empire quietly, without a single shot being fired. This is the story of how the United States bankrupted the British Empire, a story hidden from history books, a war fought not with armies, but with dollars, contracts, and strategic financial leverage. Before the outbreak of World War II, Britain had long been the dominant global power. London controlled global trade, shipping routes, banking, and insurance. The British pound was the world's reserve currency, and its colonies were the engines of its wealth. India supplied raw materials and revenue. Africa provided labor and resources, and the Middle East offered strategic control of oil. On paper, Britain was a superpower. In reality, it was fragile. The debt left over from World War I had drained gold reserves, weakened industries, and left the empire dependent on loans from the United States. By 1939, when Hitler invaded Poland, Britain was entering a new war with empty coffers and dwindling reserves. Courage, armies, and naval supremacy alone could not secure survival. Britain needed money, and America controlled it. When Germany advanced across Europe and France fell, Britain stood alone. The empire's survival depended on resources it no longer fully controlled. Enter the United States. Publicly, America claimed neutrality, but it quietly wielded immense leverage. Britain needed weapons, ships, fuel, and food. America offered these necessities, but on one condition: payment in cash or credit under strict terms. Through the cash and carry policy, Britain had to pay up front and transport goods across the Atlantic, often through waters patrolled by German U-boats. Each shipment drained Britain's reserves, making it more dependent on American financial aid. By 1941, Britain had shipped enormous amounts of gold to the United States just to maintain its war effort. When Britain could no longer sustain this financial strain, the United States introduced Lend-Lease, officially described as aid to defend democracy. In reality, Lend-Lease was a calculated economic weapon. Britain received weapons, food, fuel, and other supplies, but under conditions that gradually eroded its economic sovereignty. By the war's end, Britain owed the United States over $31 billion, equivalent to hundreds of billions today. This was not simple debt. It was strategic financial domination. Britain survived militarily, but lost autonomy over its economy, trade policies, and global influence. After 1945, the true cost became unavoidable. Lend-Lease was not free. The Anglo-American Loan Agreement of 1946 demanded repayment with interest, opened Britain's colonies and markets to American companies, and made the British pound fully convertible to dollars. Overnight, Britain's gold reserves collapsed. The government implemented austerity, industries struggled to recover, and the empire faced a crisis it could not counter. Britain had won the war on the battlefield, but it had lost the peace to finance. Without financial resources to maintain its colonies, the British Empire began a rapid decline. India gained independence in 1947. Across Africa, independence movements accelerated through the 1950s and 1960s. The Middle East, once under British influence, increasingly fell under American sway. Britain's global power waned, its currency lost dominance, and its economic policies were increasingly dictated by Washington. The empire that had once ruled oceans and continents now owed its survival to a single foreign power. Meanwhile, the United States emerged as the uncontested global superpower. Its cities were untouched, factories produced at unprecedented scales, and gold reserves dominated the globe. The dollar replaced the pound as the world's reserve currency. American institutions like the IMF and World Bank were established, cementing U.S. influence over global finance and reconstruction. The United States achieved global dominance not through conquest, but through financial strategy. The consequences for Britain were enormous. Post-war austerity, rationing, and economic hardship shaped British society for decades. Political power shifted, colonies demanded independence, and Britain's empire disintegrated faster than most had anticipated. Yet the most fascinating part of this story is the subtlety. Britain did not fall to an enemy. It fell to an ally, to financial leverage disguised as assistance, a silent victory that reshaped the world. This story offers a profound lesson. Empires do not always collapse through wars and invasions. Often they crumble quietly through debt, dependency, and economic manipulation. Britain had survived centuries of wars, invasions, and revolutions, but it could not survive the invisible hand of American finance. The most potent weapons in the modern era are no longer bullets, tanks, or bombs. They are dollars, debt, and control over global financial systems. Britain's collapse also highlights a larger geopolitical truth. Power shifts silently. Economic control can be more decisive than military control. Nations may appear victorious, but without financial independence, sovereignty is fragile. The empire that once ruled the waves was defeated not in open battle, but in banks, in agreements, and in decisions made far from the battlefield. World War II, often remembered as a military conflict, was equally a war of economics, a war won by the country that controlled the money, not just the armies. As the British Empire crumbled, the United States established a new world order. With financial power, industrial might, and the dollar as the global currency, America effectively controlled reconstruction, trade, and geopolitical strategy. Colonies once loyal to Britain now became accessible to American influence and corporations. The global shift was subtle but complete. Britain had lost the ability to dictate its own empire, and the United States had quietly become the most powerful nation in history. Empires rise and fall, but the tools of domination have evolved. Military might no longer guarantees lasting power. Financial strategy, currency control, and global trade networks determine who truly rules. Britain's experience is a warning for all nations. Debt can destroy more than bullets ever could, and alliances may carry hidden costs. Victory on the battlefield may mask a deeper loss of autonomy and control. A lesson Britain learned the hard way. History often glorifies the winners of wars, but rarely shows the hidden mechanisms behind real power. Britain's defeat after victory demonstrates that true domination can be achieved silently, without armies, without conquest, and without open conflict. Debt, dollars, and economic dependence proved more decisive than any battle. The British Empire did not vanish overnight, but it vanished steadily, through invisible chains of finance, while the United States emerged as the uncontested ruler of the post-war world. The collapse of the British Empire is more than history. It is a lesson. It reminds us that modern wars are fought not only with soldiers, but with ledgers, loans, and economic leverage. Nations may appear victorious, but without control over global finance, even empires as powerful as Britain can be undone quietly and irreversibly. The war may have ended in 1945, but the battle for global power continued, led by the country that understood that money could conquer empires faster than any army ever could. Empires rise, empires fall, but the tools of modern domination have changed. Today, global influence belongs to those who control finance, currency, and the flow of capital. Britain's silent defeat after World War II is a timeless reminder that the true weapons of power are often invisible, and the quietest wars are often the most decisive. History does not always repeat itself loudly. Sometimes it repeats in silence, through loans, agreements, and dollars that shape the world far more than any bullet could.